Most people spend their lives chasing happiness. We think if we get more money, more approval, more comfort, or more experiences, then finally we will feel content. But the Stoics believe that this chase is the very reason we remain restless. Happiness, they taught, is not something to pursue directly. It is not a prize waiting at the end of the chase. Instead, happiness is something that follows quietly, naturally, when we live with wisdom, discipline, and virtue. In this video, let's explore why the Stoics didn't chase happiness, and how this lesson can change the way you approach your own life. We live in a culture obsessed with happiness. Walk into a bookstore, and you'll find shelves filled with promises of the secret to happiness or how to be happy in 30 days. Social media feeds overflow with quotes, quick fixes, and tips on how to feel better. Advertisements bombard us daily with the message that if we buy this product, visit that destination, or adopt this lifestyle, happiness will finally be ours. Yet the more we chase it, the further it seems to slip away. The Stoics saw this truth over 2,000 years ago. They asked a different question. Not how do I feel happy, but how do I live well? For the Stoics, living well meant living according to virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. They believed that true happiness, what the Greeks called eudaimonia, is the natural byproduct of aligning your actions with these virtues. In other words, happiness is not the goal. It is the result of walking the right path. If you live wisely, courageously, and justly, then happiness will follow, not as something to grasp, but as something that flows from the kind of person you are becoming. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, knew this truth deeply. In his meditations, he wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself. In your way of thinking, think about that." Here was the most powerful man in the world, surrounded by wealth, armies, and influence. Yet he reminded himself every day that happiness was not in possessions or fame. It was in the judgments of the mind. If Marcus, with access to everything, still believed happiness came from within, perhaps we should listen. Epictetus, another Stoic teacher, lived an entirely different life. He was born into slavery. He had nothing, no wealth, no power, no freedom, and yet he taught that freedom itself comes not from external circumstances, but from controlling our desires. He said freedom is secured not by the fulfillment of men's desires, but by the removal of desire. What did he mean? Imagine chasing happiness through wealth, reputation, or possessions. Each time you want more, your contentment depends on chance, on circumstances you cannot fully control. But when you discipline your desires, when you learn to want less, when you learn to align desire with virtue, instead of externals, you become free. No one can take away your peace. Seneca, the Roman statesman and philosopher, added another voice to this chorus. He wrote letters to his friend Lucilius, warning him about confusing pleasure with happiness. Pleasure, Seneca said, can be fleeting, addictive, and unstable. Wealth, travel, and luxury may excite us, but they rarely bring peace. He said true happiness is a mind that is free, lofty, fearless, and constant. Notice his choice of words: free, lofty, fearless, constant. This is not the quick rush of dopamine. This is the steady calm of someone who knows they need very little, who is not enslaved by endless cravings. The Stoics did not simply talk about these ideas. They lived them. They practiced simplicity in daily life. They wore plain clothes, ate simple food, and trained themselves not to depend on excess. This was not because they hated joy, but because they knew joy is fragile when it depends on things outside their control. They found deeper satisfaction in self-mastery, in fulfilling their duties, and in serving others. Their happiness was not the fragile flame of pleasure, but the steady light of virtue. Now let's ask, how do we apply this Stoic view in our own time? A world full of distractions, marketing, and constant pressure to chase happiness. The first step is to shift the question. Instead of asking yourself, what will make me happy? Ask, what is the virtuous action in this moment? If your happiness depends on outcomes, winning that job, getting that relationship, reaching that goal, you will always be hostage to results outside your control. But if you focus on virtue, acting wisely, courageously, justly, with discipline, you can succeed right now in this very moment, regardless of the outcome. The second practice is something the Stoics often used. Negative visualization. This means imagining the loss of what you take for granted, your health, your loved ones, your possessions, not to make you sad, but to wake you up to gratitude. Instead of chasing new pleasures, you realize how much you already have. Suddenly, happiness is not a future prize. It is the awareness of the present gift. A third step, simplify your desires. Write down the things you believe you need for happiness. Maybe it's a higher salary, a bigger house, more followers online. Now cut that list in half. Then cut it in half again. Ask yourself honestly, do I really need all of this? Often you will find that what you thought were needs are just wants, and when you lighten that load, you feel freer, calmer, more grounded. A fourth practice, daily reflection. Each evening before you sleep, ask yourself, did I live wisely, justly, courageously, and with self-control today? Notice the shift here. You're not asking, was I happy today, but did I live according to virtue? When you build this habit, you stop chasing feelings and start measuring life by actions. Happiness then becomes the echo of a day well lived. Of course, it's easy to misunderstand Stoicism. One common mistake is to think the Stoics rejected happiness altogether. That is not true. They did not deny joy. They denied the endless chase. Another mistake is to think Stoicism means suppressing emotions, but Stoicism does not ask us to become emotionless. It asks us to understand emotions, to see where they come from, and to refuse to let them rule us. A third mistake is to treat Stoicism like a quick hack to get rid of stress or discomfort. The Stoics would remind us, pain and hardship are part of life. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to face them with courage and clarity. So, why didn't the Stoics chase happiness? Because they knew happiness cannot be caught by running after it. It arrives when you live with virtue. It arrives when your mind is calm, when your desires are disciplined, and when your actions align with reason. Happiness is not the target. It is the natural shadow of a virtuous life. Think about your own life. How much time have you spent chasing happiness? In things, achievements, or recognition? And how often has that chase left you unsatisfied? What if you shifted your focus away from chasing feelings and toward living with wisdom and virtue? What if happiness stopped being your goal and became your companion instead? The Stoics remind us, stop chasing. Start living. If this message speaks to you, share it with someone who is still running after happiness but feeling empty. And in the comments, I'd like to hear from you. What do you usually chase when you're searching for happiness? Remember, happiness is not the prize at the end of the race. It is the byproduct of living well right now, in this very moment.